Hi everyone, this is Joseph. Welcome to today's show. Today's news, we're going to be talking about CBP, the customs officers. I just came back from LAX yesterday, got some really good news that of what they're doing, and so I want to share about that. Local news of how they're adjudicating people, really good information. But the reason why I'm talking about CBP is because today's success story is about advanced parole, specifically people with Daca getting advanced parole and then coming back into the United States, right? Everybody's extremely concerned about it. I mean, I've seen tons of comments on TikTok, on YouTube Short, and just generally online saying, don't go, it's impossible. I literally have 2 cases here during this Trump era within the past month of people with advanced parole coming back in. So I'm going to talk about both of these cases, their backstory, exactly. I mean, we've never really done an advanced parole success story just because it was never that big of a deal in the past like 5 years. But I guess it is now. So I want to really highlight exactly how to do a good advanced parole, what to do, and how these 2 people were able to come back in, and 1 person already got a green card. Okay? So that's the success story. But first, the news segment about CBP officers. I think there's so much misinformation about what customs officers do, and people are extremely upset. This is one of the things I learned last time when I went on a tour, just kind of observing. Like, we as lawyers behind the scenes, as if we're CBP officers standing there just observing the crowd and the masses kind of go through and seeing what the officers do. You know what the realization is? Completely shocking or not shocking, maybe, you know when you come into the airport, right? Or if you're waiting in line and you see how they divide between US citizens and non-citizens, guess what? What is the biggest difference between people who are lining up at the US citizen crowd and the non-citizen crowd? You would never guess. Well, at least I wouldn't have guessed this. And it's that the citizen crowd, they are so much more entitled and rude compared to the non-citizens. The non-citizens, the lines are long, they have to wait a lot longer, bring the kids, bring everything, but they submit documents, they're polite, they smile, even when they're pulled into secondary, they're sitting there politely, whereas when we're going to the secondary and when we're watching, it's almost immediately identifiable who is a green card holder, who is really pissed off, and who's like US citizens who got pulled into secondary. And I think the overall idea and consensus is that when you're coming into the country, you expect to have VIP treatment. You expect that this is your home and you're not supposed to be harassed, and you've never gotten in trouble with the law, so you are permitted to be admissible. I just want to really put in perspective exactly from their point of view, okay? In the United States, there's few countries that have more visitors flying into the United States. Let me put it this way. Comparing United States to every country in the world, there's maybe like 2 countries that have more visitors, okay? So maybe France, maybe Spain, but that's it, right? And if you compare those countries, most of their visitors, or a lot of their visitors, are by train or locally within the EU, whereas the United States have like millions of people flying from all over the world and all corners of the earth flying in. And there's over 300 entry points into the United States. The northern border in Canada, the southern border in Mexico, all the airports, including the Hawaii and other areas that the United States control, those are all entry points into the domestic airlines of the United States. So they fly into the international airport, then they can fly domestically across anywhere in the country. So the United States has to staff CBP officers at all of these entry points. And anyone who gets a visa or something, they can fly over there and they have to inspect them. And guess what? In the past 50 years, the size of CBP office at each port of entry didn't increase. right? In fact, some of them decreased a little bit. They're always understaffed. They're always hiring. In the past 10 years, I've never seen one post not hiring. They're always hiring, looking for more people. The two posts that I'm most familiar with, the LAX post, the port of entry at Los Angeles Airport, and the San Diego port of entry. They're always hiring. They always need more people. They cannot train people fast enough. It's a hard job. They have a limited amount of people, but the number of people flying in, the passengers internationally, doubled, tripled, right? It's just continuously gotten more. So each officer, sometimes each day, has to interview like 300 people at LAX and at the Mexico border, Tijuana border. Both of these places during summer months, each year they could see like 40,000 people. Each month, okay, it's absolutely mind-boggling the number of people that they have to inspect, and they have to protect the United States. So they have a really, really tough job. Now, you might be saying, that's their job, they signed up for it, like, whatever. Do you know how many people they turn away? Is another stat that I was just not expected, right? Because as a private attorney, what we see very often is, oh my gosh, my visa got canceled, right? One day is a tourist visa getting canceled. Another day is an F1 student visa not being able to come in. Another day is green card getting taken away. But guess what? From the statistics that we see, it's less than 0.3%. At each port of entry, maybe 10 people per day out of the thousands, right, that get turned away. So it is very rare where a CBP officer would actually turn away an individual. And from everything that I know about CBP officers, most of the time they give so much grace to an individual before they make this call. So for example, right, let's say you're a tourist that got your visa revoked. Oftentimes what happened? In the past 2 years or 3 years, you've continuously flown to the US 6 months, you extended, you've overstayed. There's something in your record that makes them see you are very different than everybody else. You are probably illegally working. For the safety of the United States, cancel visa, go get a new visa, right? They're not saying you can never come back. Just go get a new visa. Go through the process of applying again. Pay like you paid a couple $100s to get a visa the first time. And you've been traveling in and out of the country freely. There's a couple things that you've done in the past couple years that doesn't seem quite right. Just do it again. That's really all they're saying. But people go wild and go crazy. And I understand though, because a lot of times for many of these people, whether it's tourist visa or F1 visa, their home country, it's nearly impossible to get another visa. I get it, right? Waiting for a tourist visa appointment could take 2 years. I get it. Canada, Mexico, other countries, takes forever. I get it. Student visa, you finally got into Harvard. Get canceled, and now the consulate is not issuing visas anymore for potentially, so you just cannot get another visa to come back. I get it. So when this visa being canceled, it is terrible. But to the officer, that's really what they're doing. They're saying like your background, there's something that's off. But they only do that when they look into the history. Rarely is it like the first time entering the United States and you said something off, they don't like you, and then they just cancel you and turn you back, right? Rarely is it a first time incident. Green card holders who left the United States for over 180 days, over a year. Oftentimes, I see officers give grace on people for first year, second year, third time, fourth time. Some people have been warned 2 or 3 times before green card gets confiscated and goes to deferred inspection, right? It's rare that I see somebody who just got a green card, they had to leave the United States temporarily, and they come back and immediately get their green card taken away. Being inspected and being questioned and being pulled into deferred inspection and questioned, that's their job, right? And that's not giving you a hard time. Sure, it's a little 1 hour inconvenience, but think about from their perspective, they have to make sure the 3,000, 10,000 people entering today that they are safe and they're not going to harm the commonwealth of the United States. And so these 20, 30, 40 people, they've already on 12-hour shifts, they have to review 300 people. They're not going to spend their precious energy on just anyone, okay? So there's something in your record, usually in your past, and they usually have to go through a couple layers before they can make that really difficult call of saying, sorry, you are inadmissible, your visa is getting terminated, you are leaving the country, and we're not even allowing you to do a voluntary withdrawal. Again, it is quite rare. Now, it's also absolute numbers, right? So if each airport cancels 10, 20, right, and you multiply that by 200 port of entries, then yes, every day there's 2,000 major complaints against CBP. And they make their way to the private bar association, and lawyers hear about it, and it makes the news, and the news blow it up all the more. This Canadian has family in the US, and their visa's getting canceled, and they've been like, but the thing is, when you find out more information about exactly what happened and what went down and the reasons why, you kind of understand. That's why CBP did what they did. Are some CBP officers more lenient than other officers? Of course, right? That's the nature of an officer's job, as well as the consulate. You're being judged by, officers, and they make human, rational choices. When I was at the meeting yesterday, the same time President Trump announced the Muslim ban. It's not the Muslim ban, country ban, but essentially it's similar to the first term, banning a bunch of people. The Attorney Bar Association, right? We have 20 attorneys. We specifically asked the CBP officer, do you have any direct memos, instructions on how to evaluate Muslims? And they looked us in the eye and said no. And we believe them. But with that being said, they're not judging you, maybe not on your religious orientation, but they have to judge you based on the stats that their risk system assesses. And what does the risk assessment assess? Your country of nationality, what you're doing, your resume, your background, your connection to the US, the visa you hold. If somebody is constantly flying in countries where it is unsafe to the United States, there's a risk assessment, and you hold that passport, and you are a tourist, which arguably is one of the lowest safeties, right, in the United States, right? If you are a business owner, if you are an executive, if you are an immigrant, you already went through so many layers of background. As a tourist, you only went through one background check at the consulate, and it could have been like 5 years ago. So as a tourist, your background check is definitely of the least. And then if you are coming from a country that is risky to the United States, and this risk is also changing every single day, right? Were people from Afghanistan a big risk a couple years ago compared to now, compared to 10 years ago? Obviously it's different, right? So with that being said, every single time you come into the United States, doesn't matter if you've been to the United States 3 times before, 10 times before, your past experience cannot predict what your future experience will be like. You know what you've experienced, but this next officer who's reviewing you, circumstances could have changed in geopolitics, as well as so many other things. So the CBP officer said there's no direct memo instruction on how they are supposed to treat people who have brown skin, but their risk assessment test is looking at the country of origin, where you've been flying from, obviously your risk, the way what you pose to the U.S. But it's not just strict denials, right? It's just a couple more lines of questioning, and it's secondary potentially. Now, you might say, but I've been doing secondary for like years now. Every single time I come in, I get inspected and I get questioned. Yes, there is a DHS trip system that can help you, right? So maybe there's something that's in your background that will just always cause you to be inspected. Maybe that's just your luck in life. I'm really sorry. But what you can do to help yourself potentially is say, hey, every single time I get pulled in, it's a waste of government resource on your end to always inspect me, right? I'm coming in, once or twice a year, and you waste another 2 hours time reviewing my application, and I'm always clean to go. I'm flying again. I'm using a DHS trip system to alert you. I'm coming in again. If everything is clear, then we save each other's time, right? That's why that system has been made, right? And it's definitely useful. The only thing I would tell most people is that just because you use DHS trip once and it successfully allows you to go through without secondary doesn't mean the next time you will be free to go, because the DHS system also gets updated every year. So what's ever on your record will always stay on your record. Just because you got cleared once doesn't mean you're going to be forever cleared. So if you are the type, if in your background there's some issue that you're always getting pulled in, just make sure to do the DHS trip every single year, okay? So that is some of the big information that I want to share from this experience going to LAX. The CBP officers announced a lot of things, and we were listening, and it's very interesting. The deferred inspection office to correct mistakes by CBP officers, that's not closed. We were all terrified that it was closed. It's not closed, right? At LAX, they were going to shut the door. But I mean, they were saying appointment only, and that's what's scared everybody, because we were thinking like, oh my gosh, CBP is also going to be like USCIS, info, like appointments only. You have to call in a hotline and wait like 36 hours before they call you back. But no, it is still open. You can still go to LAX deferred inspection to correct any mistakes that you suffer. Walk-ins are available. Other areas of good news: if you have a notice to appear at immigration court and you're traveling with a valid document, just be prepared to go secondary and really explain yourself. Might have to wait 4 hours, 8 hours as they like figure everything out. But it is not the case where they have to transfer you over to ICE. They might have to check with ICE about the case, but if it's like an abandonment issue, maybe they can still let you in. It is not the case where just because you have a notice of to appear that they have to lock you up and turn you over to ICE. Okay, at least that's what the LAX officers have been saying to us. And actually, we checked with National too, because that was so alarming, right? Like, what do you mean I come back and I will get arrested and be detained for months? That's insane. I'm not going to come back then, right? But if you have a criminal record, if you have removal proceedings, yes, ICE is obligated to take you, and then you could get bond, right? But you still might be locked up for 10, 15 days. But if it's like a minor notice of intent to appear, and you are a valid green card holder, and maybe you have a valid claim to cancellation or removal, or you have other good reasons, CBP officer could still let you in. We have seen green card holders who've left the country while having a notice of intent to appear come back in and still successfully come in without going through ICE. Yes, they're in the secondary for an extensive long time, but they still can come in. If you are in secondary, there's something else they told us. If you are in secondary for a long time, what happens if you have a medical illness? You can get transferred to a hospital, but obviously you really have to prove that, because everybody who is locked in secondary for 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours or more, right? Because we have seen this happen where you are in for more than 12 hours. They don't want you there. They definitely don't want you there. They don't have the facility to house people there. It's a limited capacity. But again, right, each port of entry, they might be only denying 5 to 10 people. And that room that I've been in for the secondary, the big secondary, where you're basically having to be deported or kicked out or visa revoked and board the next plane, it could house like 5 to 10 people. So it's totally sufficient space, right? They're not like just deporting hundreds of people, right? Unlike other countries, right? Namely Mexico, right? Having gone to Mexico, a lot of clients fly in, the entire plane gets deported back. Absolutely crazy. But in the United States, that's actually not the case. But yeah, if you have a medical reason, they can transfer you to a hospital, right? We know about it, and we were actually quite curious. I'm like, oh, under what conditions can they transfer it? They wouldn't tell us that, but at least we know that that's an option. Something else I found out that was mind-boggling that I want to share is that the sanctuary city status of California, of Los Angeles, is actually what's causing ICE to have to transfer people far, far away, okay? So what you see on the news is incorrect. What you see on the news is, oh my goodness, people come into the country and then they got detained, and then now ICE takes them, and then they transfer them like halfway across the United States. They are depriving the family to meet with them. They're depriving lawyer representation. This is such an evil tactic. That is what I want to correct, because I didn't even know about this until yesterday. Now, what I want to correct the misunderstanding is that it is not a tactic. Hard stop, period. What do I mean by that? In certain situations, CBP officers, they have to hand individuals to ICE. ICE then, after they pick them up, they're supposed to put them in detention centers, right? That's the steps. In other red states, in other states, ICE would be able to have local contractor detention centers all over the place. Whatever the supply and demand is, they will have detention centers. Well, guess what? In California, in New York, they don't allow ICE to have detention centers, or not a lot at least, right? They're all super in the outskirts. There are detention centers in California. Chula Vista has one, a couple, Otay, right? Otay, but they can only house a couple thousand people. But given the millions and millions of people all across the state, that's not enough room to house everyone. So because of the sanctuary city, because of that status, because ICE was not allowed, the federal ICE program was not allowed to have detention centers, and there's not enough room, the only thing they can do is transfer you to wherever there is room. It does not tickle them fancy to transfer people constantly, right? Transfer you to Oklahoma, and then transfer you to Alabama, and then to Florida and Tennessee, and then to Texas, and then back to California, and then go to court hearing. That wastes a ton of resource. Nobody's finding joy in that work, but it's just the nature of not having enough room, and that's caused by the sanctuary city and the number of people who are inadmissible. I did not know that until yesterday, and so I just want to correct that misunderstanding about ICE using it as an evil tactic. The situation remains that it is extremely unfortunate where your family member suddenly gets transported halfway across the country. So if you want to see them, you have to go halfway across the country, and it's extremely expensive, time-consuming, and they can't get legal representation. That is true. But what caused that is not what you see online. So hopefully this new segment sheds some light on CBP officers, their job, their responsibility, the correct statistics, because there's a lot of fear-mongering over CBP officers and what they're doing. There's a lot of fear-mongering over what ICE is doing. Is it a fearful time? It absolutely is. But I just want to put things in perspective for most people. Okay? All right. I said a lot more than I wanted to about this, but I just want to share. I think it's really good and useful information. With that being said, I'm going to start answering some questions before we get to the news. Before we get to the success story segment.
I was abroad for 18 months taking care of my sick father and didn't get a reentry permit. Will I be allowed back in?
As a green card holder coming back into the United States, you left the United States for 18 months. This question I almost directly asked the officer yesterday, okay? They said, case-by-case basis, present documents. But here's also what they said. Is it a first-time offense? In the past 5-10 years, where were you, right? Are you studying? Are you working? Have your life been here? And is it true you've been out for 18 months for that medical reason and you have documents to prove that? So they look at the past, they look at the future, they look at who you are, they look at present everything. They do not have this immediate red line where everybody just immediately gets detained and have to go to immigration court. I can tell you from my experience of, obviously this is not legal advice, but just sharing my experience, it's almost guaranteed you will come into the country. Whether or not you come in directly as a green card holder with no issues, whether you come in with a warning in the system, so make sure you don't leave next time and do the same thing, or you have to pay a fine, I-193 waiver of travel documents, so basically forcing you to have paid the reentry permit fee that you should have had last time before leaving, or your green card gets taken away and you have to go back to the first inspection to get it back and explain yourself. Those are just severities, right? From least severe to the most severe, but almost 99% chance you will enter the country. You will not be detained, or you will be just forced to return to their home country. And almost certainly they will not force you to sign the 407 abandonment of green card because they are completely swamped. Hopefully that helps.
Can I own shares in a company on STEM OPT?
The United States welcomes all people around the world. I can't even say that anymore. Sorry. Geez, politics are changing so fast. Generally speaking, almost anyone around the world can spend money and invest in the United States, right? I say generally because certain nationalities, they cannot buy certain companies, cannot invest in certain assets, like certain people in certain countries cannot buy land in certain states anymore, right? So things are getting very dicey and tricky in the United States. But generally speaking, majority of the case, as a tourist, as an international student, as a STEM OPT, you are eligible to spend money, to invest, to make America great. Unless you have a work permit, you cannot work, but you can invest. So, for example, you can buy Disney stock, you can buy Starbucks stocks, you can buy Nvidia stocks. But can you go intern and work for them? No. If you have a startup, you can invest in it, but can you draw a salary from it? Can you be a CEO, a secretary? Those become question marks. Can you have an Instagram account and you make videos and you get paid? That's kind of like work, isn't it? Right? So just don't get paid, you can spend. That's a good general rule.
K-1 interview for my Colombia fiancé. Any suggestions?
I'm assuming the interview is in Colombia. It's a consulate interview, not a USCIS. I would suggest you guys to probably double or triple the amount of proof that you guys are really dating and you guys really intend to get married. Whatever you think is enough, triple that. Just because most people don't realize what they're up against, right? There are so many K-1 visa frauds. So if the person next to you, the person before you, the person after you, if they're a fake marriage case and they prepared twice as much as you did, and you suddenly are appearing and you cannot answer some basic questions, then to the officer, you might be fake and they might be real. So whatever you think that you have to prove that your relationship is real, dig deeper and triple the amount.
Can I visit the US on a B2 visa while my marriage-based green card is pending?
Great question. We asked that literally yesterday. You have an I-130 petition, immigrant petition pending. You have an I-140 immigration pending. Can you still travel to the US as a B1, B2? Would these immigrant petitions automatically cause your B1, B2 to be denied? And the officer answered definitively, no. Your visa will not automatically be revoked and denied. You will not be canceled and not permitted to come in just because of that. But do you have extra explanation to do? Yes. Should you be prepared to go to secondary and explain yourself? Yes. What should you do? What should you not do? You definitely should not have a single, ticket entering to the U.S., right? Because you're a tourist, you're supposed to leave. Why are you buying a single trip ticket? Why are you bringing like 3 huge luggages with everything and your priority day is almost close and you're gonna file adjustment? Why, when we check your phone, you already resigned from your job, right, at home? All of those makes it very suspicious that when you come in, you're just gonna stay, right? So as a tourist, you need to prove you are a tourist. You could have a fiance, you could have somebody who you're married to, and you guys are trying to make long distance work, but you still need to prove to the officer convincingly that this trip, this time, you are not going to violate any immigration law. So treat this trip when you enter as a thorough interview.
Can green card holders travel abroad with dismissed misdemeanor shoplifting charge?
Look up crime of moral turpitude and inadmissibility, right? Use ChatGPT, use DeepSeek, learn a little bit more about it, because the answer is it depends. It depends on what your charges are, how long the sentence is, how long have you been in jail, does it qualify for petty theft crime, how many times have you been arrested and convicted. So look a little bit into that. The answer you might find is like, oh, I might be okay, but I still should prepare to explain myself, right? So it's a maybe. Learn a little bit more about inadmissibility, specifically crime of moral turpitude for green card holders.
If I get sent to secondary inspection, do I have a right to speak to a lawyer?
You do not. It's an international space. You do not have a right to representation. They will not want to talk to a lawyer. They just want to talk to you. If you need a translator, they can provide a translator. But it's not a legal proceeding, even though legal consequences are happening. Now, with all of that being said, have there been incidents, because we tell our clients this when we represent them, They're not going to want to talk to us. Explain your situation. We already spent, months coaching you to prepare to explain to the officer, right? We already did multiple consultations. We're on standby. What you can tell the officer is, after explaining everything, if they look confused, if the senior officer looks confused, if it's a very tricky situation that they really don't know how to deal with, you can always offer, look, my attorney is actually available to explain this area that's kind of complicated. Do you want to talk to them? In a few incidents, the officer actually said, sure, put them on the line. And it's, again, we're just there to help explain to them on a very minute area. We're not fighting them. We're not trying to convince them or persuade them. It's not a court proceeding, right? So it's a very unique situation. Maybe like, let's say you're an international student and your SEVIS account was terminated and you got a new one, but your visa still had the old school. Again, most officers know all of this, but maybe it's a very small technicality that they don't quite understand. Maybe you're trying to do revalidation and maybe they weren't trained on it and that supervisor is on lunch break. Hey, my lawyer is happy to explain this if you need. Point you to the right manual. Then they may, so anyways, I got a few phone calls before.
Green card holders 5 years now, no crimes. Should I be concerned for anything?
Well, as a green card as a green card holder who have no crimes, you've had it for 5 years, should you be concerned about anything?
Be concerned about ANYO.
ANYO. I don't know what that means either. ANYO. Yeah, I'm sorry. But yeah, as a green card holder, I could say in this administration, a lot of the rights and privileges of green card holders are getting narrowly stripped away, getting less and less and less. So, in my opinion, if it's in the stars for you, try to get the citizenship, right? That's a much stronger protection, much more difficult to have that privileges and rights taken away.
Can I get my citizenship if I owe back child support? The kids are in their 30s now.
We did a case where, yeah, the father owed a lot of child support and still got the citizenship. Just kind of search that on our YouTube channel, naturalization. And we had to prove to the officer our client is a good guy. There is no crime of moral turpitude. And we proved that he tried to pay child support, but it's the wife that refused it all. And we were able to document everything. And he was willing to pay more than what the court required. But yeah, you would want to kind of dig in and kind of explore how do you make that argument.
Can a D1 crew from 30 years ago, 245I, start adjusting the status now since kids are over 21?
Most likely. Most likely. If you qualify for 245I, your children could petition you. You should be able to. Feel free to book a consultation specifically with Gabby. She does most of these type of cases at our firm.
Hi, if you move to Mexico because you have a voluntary deportation, how long does it come back to U.S.?
If you have a deportation order and you left the United States, it is very difficult to come back. We don't really do that kind of area of law. We don't do removal proceedings, but to my knowledge, it is incredibly difficult to return.
Okay, that's all.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna take a drink and then we'll start the advanced parole Daca success story. Today's success story is about advanced parole with Daca, right? So you're a dreamer and you want to leave the United States. Normally, dreamers, Daca holders, cannot leave the United States. They are only permitted to stay in the United States with their status. But if you apply for advanced parole, then you can leave and you can come back. In the past, this was not that big of an issue. A lot of people got it, but in this administration, these past 5 months, I don't know how many people were terrified of doing this. And there's so many different opinions about it. We've been encouraging people, still apply. Once you get it approved, then decide if you want to go or not go, right? The risk doesn't happen until you actually leave and come back, right? But you could still apply. But still, people are saying don't apply, people are saying don't go. Well, today we have 2 success stories. and I'm going to go through everything with you to show you exactly what their circumstances are, which port of entry, just so you can have more facts to kind of compare. Okay, so the first case is they applied for advanced parole in December of 2024, and then they got it approved, and they came in March of 2025 through LAX, and it was fine, right? Like we prepared everything, we explained everything, they explained everything to the officer, and it's fine. Again, March 2025, not too long ago. It is during the craziness that I don't want to say height of the craziness. Maybe I'm optimistic because it's always getting crazier. But people are still coming in with advanced paroles, right? And so let me kind of explain how we did it. It was a 3-page attorney brief explaining why they qualify for the I-131. So this is our client. They are applying for advanced parole to travel outside the United States. They are seeking permission to visit the 74-year-old grandfather who resides in Mexico. He's been battling a critical illness. He wants to pay his respect for late aunt who passed away in 2021. They've been in Daca status since 2012 and explained their entire background. And then I talked about exactly who they are in the United States, what they're doing now, and where they're going to go, and the itinerary. So the bullet point number 1, request to visit sick and elderly maternal grandfather, providing all the documents, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 documents, proving that he is going to meet this person. And then there is also requesting to pay respect to the late aunt's tombstone, providing documents there, and also a detailed statement. We filed it. The advanced parole got approved relatively quickly, and then finally made the trip in March. They were quite scared, but we were on standby to make sure when they entered they're completely safe, and it was completely fine. The officers were polite, they understood everything, did not give them a hard time. We had them prepare the entire application of the advanced parole, so if the officer did ask, hey, why did you go there? Where did you go? Where did you do? They can actually show they actually did what they were supposed to do. And they came in, and they're about to file their green card, right? And so because as a DACA recipient, you cannot apply for a green card because you had never been inspected. But with an advanced parole, if you leave and come back in, then you've been inspected. And if you have an immediate relative that's a U.S. citizen, then they can file for you. So, so this was a successful case that just happened a couple months ago. Now, this other case, they already got the green card, right? So let's go through this timeline. This was crazy, crazy fast. We filed the advanced parole July of 2023. In March of 2024, they were able to enter through the Tijuana border, right? So July 2023, applied, it got approved within a few months. They left the United States, went to Mexico. March 2024, they came back in successfully. We then applied for their green card February 2025, 4 months ago, and in May of 2025, 2 weeks ago, green card already got approved, right? Absolutely crazy, and this is Trump era application. These are for DACA holders who apply for advanced parole, who leave the country, who came back, who filed and got the green card, right? So I know on the news, people are having all sorts of, fear-mongering about USCIS, about the crackdowns, about people getting deported, and people are paralyzed with fear, not wanting to do things that they absolutely have the right and ability to do. DACA holders have the right to apply for advanced parole. It hasn't been shut down yet, right? USCIS allows it. So apply for it. Provide the humanitarian reason why you need to travel abroad, provide the reason why it's work-related, or provide the reason why it's humanitarian-based. Provide these personal stories. It gets approved. Then actually go do the thing that you're supposed to do, right? There's so many people who apply and then they don't do it. They just go to the border and turn around, come back. Those are the people that CBP officers are pissed off about. And CBP officers have told me that they are pissed off at these people because it's misrepresentation. They think it's a game, right? Like advanced parole is a privilege to allow you to leave to do this thing. And they know that it gets you a green card later on, but you still didn't even do it, right? So just, whatever reason that you need to go abroad, prepare it well, cleanly. It's not difficult. get it and actually do the thing. And when you come back, present it well, be very polite. CBP officer inspects you, approves you. Both of these cases, they were inspected. There was no problem given to them, and they were able to come in the country. And then it's just like any other immigration application, right? You got married, U.S. citizens petitions you, you get a green card. Or your children is over 21, petitions you, you get a green card, right? So I want to just share these stories with all of you, okay? It works. It's still working. The United States is not shut down just because there are anti-immigrant sentiments. There are these career officers at the CBP level, at USCIS, at the consulate. They're still approving tens of thousands of green cards and visas almost on a daily basis. I want to be able to provide these hard facts to show that it's still working, okay? The system has not broken down yet. The news is just a little scary, but if you have a good case, just do it well and you still should be fine. If you guys have any questions about advanced parole, I mean, I really don't know much more to say about advanced parole because it's a relatively simple application to do. I think the hard part is the fear of doing it, and the hard part is maybe the fear of how to present yourself before an officer. So if you have questions, if you have concerns about what to do in those situations, feel free to schedule a consultation, right? Of course, when we do it, we are on standby, so we provide that extra service just for your peace of mind, right? In case anything happens, we are right there. We're one call away. So anyways, I'm glad advanced parole is a pathway for many Daca recipients to get the green card. Wish you guys the best. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, so that was a success story for advanced parole and CBP. I'll answer any last questions, and then I'll take my lunch.
If someone overstayed their student visa by 3+ years, is it difficult for them to get a green card through marriage? And would they need to leave the country first?
Under immigration law, if you've been a visa overstay, you're a student visa overstay, right? Doesn't matter, you are here unlawfully. If you get married to a U.S. citizen, they can waive that unlawful presence, essentially. They have the privilege because they're a U.S. citizen. If you get married to a green card holder, then you have to file a waiver, a 601 waiver, to waive that unlawful presence. But in both of those instances, whether you get married to a green card holder or a U.S. citizen, you can still get a green card, and you don't necessarily need to leave the United States. Waiver is a different story, right? However, when the officer is reviewing your application, in their mind, 9 out of 10 of these applications that is sitting in front of them, 9 out of 10, probably fraudulent in some way, shape, or form. So you have an additional red flag, additional hurdle to have to jump through, because they also know this is your one way to get a green card. You've overstayed. You cannot change to a different status. You are living in the shadows. You're living in the dark. You're living illegally. You are desperate. And so did you defraud? Are you going in? You're in a very vulnerable situation where you want to defraud the American immigration system. Is this marriage real? If it is, we'll grant you the green card. If it is not, we'll deport you, right? That's USCIS mindset. That's ICE mindset. So if you've overstayed for 3 years and you have a real good marriage, you can still get a green card. How many gets approved? Actually, tons get approved. If you look on USCIS stats, you could probably see tons of green card applications, 751 applications getting approved. Just focus on the fact that it's a real marriage. Really commingle your assets. Really live together. Get to know their family. Have him or her get to know your family. Go on trips together. Adopt a dog. Really get close to show that it is a real marriage. Don't live in 2 different locations, right? Good luck.
I had a minor arrest years ago. Can I still get DACA?
Yeah. I mean, if DACA is open, you can prove your case. You could still get it, right? We've seen people with DUIs still get DACA. We've seen different circumstances. It obviously is up to the officer. You do want to get your police report, your arrest records, your conviction. How have you reformed yourself? What are you doing now? You want to do that and prepare it well. So when you are eligible to apply, hopefully you can get it.
Can beneficiary having a personal loan affect adjustment of status?
Having a personal loan, will that affect adjustment of status? Well, here's the big picture. If you are a public charge, your green card will get denied. Your adjustment status will get denied. So how do you determine if you have public charge? They look at your age, they look at your resume, they look at your earning capability, they look at your living standard, they look at your background, they look at your assets, your investments, they look at so many of these things. If all things considered, wow, you don't have a work, you can't get work, there's all these reasons why you might become dependent on the U.S. society, you have all these outstanding debts, you have loans and liens against you, the United States government probably will deny you on the public charge. So the personal loan falls into that kind of category. I don't even know if USCIS officers can see the personal loan, right? But if it's like an official mortgage statement, then they can probably see it. But if it's like I don't know.
Does your firm also help with naturalization process and interview? Can we contact you for that?
Absolutely. Let's just start with the consultation, right? Naturalization could be super simple or it could be super complicated. So once you kind of look through the N400, you could look through the form, you could find out the process. If you have any specific questions, we're happy to help answer everything during a consultation. And hopefully that might be enough just for you to do the rest of it.
Do you recommend with this administration that I file my own naturalization citizenship, like file without an attorney, no criminal history?
If you have a clean case, totally file, totally file. And having an attorney file doesn't make it better, okay? I mean, I'm an attorney and I'm telling you, there are plenty of people who are very sophisticated and do things really well, and attorneys are not necessarily better. We know the law, we know how different issues. So if it's a complicated case and you have no experience, no matter how excellent you are, we will probably do a little bit better, okay? As long as you don't hire an attorney that scams you and do a worse job than what you could do. That is the nightmare, right? So, if you have a clean case, you don't think there's any issues, you completely understand it, totally file on your own. If you want to just double check, happy to just jump on a call, consultation, and walk you through like, okay, yeah, you do seem absolutely clean and good, right?
Last question. What are your thoughts on the travel ban?
What are my thoughts on the travel ban? I think it is exactly what the American people voted for this president. He did it the first time. He said, and he's going to do it again. And so he has done it. Is it good for America? Is it bad for America? Is it good for the rest of the country? That is so debatable, right? And unfortunately, I just don't know. I don't have any enough facts to talk about that, right? I mean, I'm very sympathetic to the people who are now banned. We actually have clients who have been flying back and forth, and because of the ban now, they can't. Hard stop. Are they a threat? Should they be able to fly? Should they be able to get another visa with a consulate? But if they can, what about other people? Would that break down the system? The commander-in-chief of this country supposedly has the maximum amount of information on what is threatening the United States. So whether you say it is completely political, it is his own ideology, or it is true and he's doing what's right, ultimately, you knew he was going to do that. And that is what the American people voted for, at least half. And that's just democracy, as painful as it is. Hopefully, if you have a good case, if you have a good reason to come to the United States, if you have a will, perhaps you can find a way. You can get a different nationality. You can go through a different port of entry. You can get a humanitarian parole. You can have a waiver, right? So in the face of everything that we've been seeing, student visas getting canceled, travel ban, people being deported, the one thing that I've learned in all my years of practicing immigration law as an immigration law specialist is that the United States value people and companies with value. And so if there are things that strikes against you and makes you not able to get something, a visa, a green card, as easily as other people. But if you prove that you are a person of value, you can potentially get an exception. We've seen this time and time again. So do your absolute best. Wish you the best. Okay? Take care. And goodbye, everyone. We'll see you. Will I be here next week? Maybe I'll be here next week. And then at Ayla, I won't be here. But we'll report the newest information. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.